So last time you were here, we talked about a number of different things. A lot of it in this, we'll call it the sales process. And I know that's, the S word is not the ideal word or most loved word in optometry. But I do think that it's an important word because my definition, I stole from Daniel Pink, is to help others trade time and money and resources to make their lives better. Right? I'm asking them for something, and in return, they get something that enhances their life, which we do on a daily basis. I give money to the butcher so that I can get a steak because it makes my life better. Right? I give money to Blackstone so I can have a Blackstone so I can cook the steak on. It makes my life better.
Yeah.
So it's all, can be very positive in that regard. And at the end, you brought up the concept of story, my story and their story.
Yeah.
Which I thought was intriguing, and said I was going to twist your arm to bring you back to talk about it. Walk us through what you mean by that. I don't want to rehash the last conversation. For those who are just listening, I'll link in the show notes the last conversation they can catch up on. But, the idea of my story and your story, what do you mean?
Yeah. Well, we all have our stories we're living. This is just real life. And so story tends to work in, there's a pattern to story. So story starts with me having a need in life, whether it's at the very basic level, shelter, food, that sort of thing, into higher elements like purpose and health and status, that sort of thing. So I have my own story I'm living, and usually you hit a problem. So there's a thing that I'm trying to build my life with my family. I'm going to hit a problem. So you mentioned steak. It could be that I want to celebrate my anniversary with my wife. So we want to go buy steaks and cook them and have a great night. That's a problem I need to solve. It's a small problem, but it's a problem I need to solve. So each story, we all have our own pieces there. And what happens in the business world, or in really if you're a practice owner or an optometrist, then the story is, here's my story. And my story is I'm trying to sell a product. I'm trying to sell a service. I'm trying to sell a treatment. I'm trying to build my practice. I'm trying to take care of my family. I'm trying to pay my employees. So those are all pieces of your story. Here's the history. Here's when I started it. Here's all the things that matter to me. And we try to sell our story to our patients. We try to sell, if this is a treatment that I think I need to make money on, or a treatment I'm trying to introduce to my patients, I'm going to sell that story to my patient. And we don't realize that our patient's story doesn't necessarily always interact or intersect with that same story. Well, long story short, we each have a thing. And for me as a patient of Dr. Werner, you're going to ask me some things that are relevant to my life. If you're trying to engage in my story, you're going to ask me some lifestyle questions. You're going to ask me some things that I'm dealing with my vision or with my kids' vision. And I'm going to answer those. And that's you entering into my story to figure out how your authority, your treatments, your options can help me solve that problem. And kind of back up a little bit on why story matters, because this will actually help set some context as well. So story, according to, this is a Donald Miller thing, and we talked about story brain before, we talked about it in the last podcast. Story is a sense-making device, meaning our brains are actually wired, oddly, to understand story better than we understand anything else. So when I say that, that means there's a framework by which we tell stories that actually helps us understand what you're trying to tell me. It's why early manhood, that was all, stories were passed along before writing even happened. It's why story kind of became the device at which we passed history to the next generation, because it was memorable. We could actually ingest it, pay attention, and not have to burn a whole lot of energy or calories to actually understand it. And it's why we can sit in front of a Netflix show for 8 hours and binge watch and be fine and understand everything there is in the story, but we sit for 20 minutes in a webinar and we're already checked out. It's because there's not the element of story and something like that, unless you have a really good presenter who understands the concept. So story helps us actually understand, again, there's a problem. We have someone who can solve it. That's the guide. They give us a direction, which is the plan, and then show us what life looks like if you follow me, if I'm the guide, if you follow what I tell you to do, and then what life looks like if we fail. So that's when I talk about story is so important. And I've had these conversations with businesses and doctors, and I'll say, hey, we're going to use the power of story to help you market your company or create your sales pitches. And usually they're like, oh, that's awesome because we have a really cool story. Like, this is how our practice started. This is my history. My dad started the company, whatever, you name it. And I'm like, no, it's not your story. Sorry.
No one cares. Yeah.
Can't help you there. But I can help you when it comes to your patient's story. And we try to identify what it is that they're trying to solve and the life they're living. So that was a very long answer on what story is, but that's kind of the concept on using story for selling and marketing and even just running your practice.
Yep. Well, that's interesting because I'm thinking as I'm listening to you of all the conversations I've had with, the last couple of days.
Yeah.
And most conversations other than it's, hey, can you pick up the kids? Can you do this? Can you do that? Right. It involves a story. Here's the situation. Here's the problem.
Here's the outcome.
And here's the outcome. Somewhere in there's a choice on what action to take.
Yeah.
Or what action was taken or what wasn't taken.
Yeah.
So it almost followed exactly that same model. I'm thinking of the conversations I've had with my daughters, with my son, with my colleagues. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's again, how our brains are wired. There's always, they call it a story loop. So when I say open the story loop, there's a question, how am I going to overcome this? How am I going to fix this challenge? How am I going to get the kids to school? How am I going to, how are we celebrating our anniversary? How am I going to overcome this challenge in my business? We had a shortfall. So there's tension. And as humans, we're designed to actually thrive in tension and move past it to solve it. And we need help. And that's where the guide comes along. I can't examine my own eyes. I need a guide to help me do that and identify things that will help me have vision for the rest of my life, because that's important to me.
Yep.
One of the things interesting, I think if you step back a little further into, this is the first thing that I think every practice should ask. And it is, what do my patients truly want when it comes to their eye care? And I think that's a question most practices sometimes struggle to answer, but it's worth actually kind of bringing up with your staff and say, hey guys, we've got all these great treatments. We've got all this new equipment we're working through. We've got whatever. What is it that our patients truly come in wanting from us? And that kind of helps you set up what I call just your niche. Like, what's the unique selling point that we as a practice offer? We don't want to be just a generalist. We don't want to just be the ones that people show up and say, hey, I need to have my eye exam every 18 months, every year, every whatever. I want to be someone who actually solves problems for patients. So what is it that they need from us? What is it that they want from us? And then you figure that out. Is it high-end optical? Is it, we're amazing at our timeliness. We do great with kids, whatever the thing is, and say, this is what they want from us. And we do this really well. It just really helps you understand who your customers are. And that's the story you find them in.
Okay. That's an interesting, and I suspect fairly difficult.
It's hard. Yeah.
Exercise. What are some, so when you do this with an office and you say, hey, what are your patients want from you? Right.
Yeah.
I guess my gut reaction is probably the answer is very big and too big.
Mm-hmm.
They want good eye care. They want,
right.
It's, do you want us to get detailed when you're answering that question? Like, they want,
I would like to.
How deep in the weeds?
I do. I'd like to, actually, because again, that helps you position your practice. There's this word positioning that people use a lot. And I don't think anybody actually understands what that means, positioning. But positioning to me means you've identified who your patients are uniquely. That's your they call it ICP, your ideal customer profile. And it could be ideal patient profile. And that's the demographics of who you think you serve the best. And that just means that you actually understand their problems really well, which means you've listened to your patients. You actually understand what the thing is that they're trying to solve and the pain points they have. And then that helps you understand what they want. I've said this before. I don't think I said it on one of the last podcasts I was on, was just go read your Google reviews and you'll start to kind of figure out what they really value in your practice. It could be, hey, I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old and they're terrorists and the office did great with them. They were so kind and my kids actually behaved, that kind of thing. Or it could be, I don't like being in the doctor's office for more than 30 minutes, and they got me in and out quickly, and I was able to get back. Or they didn't try to just pitch me on every service that they have, and I felt listened to and heard. You start hearing that stuff and you realize, oh, this is what they actually want. So then your positioning, which is how you talk about your company, becomes answering those questions. And then you attract the right patient to your practice. That's a difficult exercise. It really is, because everybody wants to be everything to everybody, and which means you're nobody to nobody.
The Myopia Collective. CooperVision and the AOA have partnered in a groundbreaking initiative to change the way optometrists in the U.S. treat children with myopia. The purpose of the Myopia Collective is to rally the profession of optometry and its allies to interrupt the status quo and elevate the new standard of care for children with myopia. Every individual is encouraged to become a member of the collective. By joining, you commit to taking action to help slow the progression of myopia in children. You'll receive updates and information about the collective and its work in the fight against myopia, gain access to educational opportunities and resources offered by the collective, and hear from change agents, the ambassador optometrists selected to serve as advocates for community and policy change that facilitates the mission of the collective. Scan the QR code or click on the link in the show notes to join the collective today. In the past, our focus revolved around prescribing MacuHealth or MacuHealth Plus to patients at risk of macular degeneration, while also recommending it to collegiate and professional athletes for enhanced contrast sensitivity in sports performance. However, this year's introduction of the Life Meter has been a game changer. The Life Meter revealed a concerning truth. Many of my patients have alarmingly low skin carotenoid levels, indicating potential deficiencies in essential body tissues like the retina and brain. Supported by over 30 peer-reviewed publications, Life Meter's accuracy, consistency, and effectiveness has been demonstrated across 2,000 subjects with diverse backgrounds. With this newfound insight, I can now have meaningful conversations about carotenoid levels with all of my patients, even those who may seem outwardly healthy. To learn more about this empowering technology, feel free to contact your MacuHealth representative or click on the link in the show notes. Together, let's optimize patient care and elevate their well-being. You're nothing to nobody.
That's right.
No, that's interesting. How often do you find when we whittle down to, hey, here's what I think my patients want from me? Is that pretty accurate when you dive into kind of the numbers that you see in the practice, or do you see there's a disconnect between who I think I am and what I think they want versus what I'm delivering?
It really depends on kind of the length of how long the practice has been open. Because I have one doctor who is kind of the only OD in his area, and he does really well. And so his value is that he's just a community. He's just really well known in his community, and so he has a lot of trust there. He's not moved around. His practice has stayed relatively the same size, and so he is the go-to guy. He's very involved in the community. And so that's what you can tell patients value is in his area. He's a small town doctor. His practice does great, but they're attracted to him because he's the local guy and he is involved in theater and sports and all sorts of stuff in the area. And so he's well liked. And so that's kind of his value proposition, right? He's a great doctor, treats them well, but he's also, they know who he is. They know his name. He knows their name. That's not going to happen in Austin, Texas, or San Diego, unless you're in a small neighborhood. But they may have something different. They may have a different value that actually drives them. And so that means you are going to carve out people who are not a good fit for you. And you have to be okay with that. Say, I'm not going to be the doctor for everybody, and I can carve that out. So I think the like cold starts and younger practices, they've got to start kind of thinking through that and figure that out. It's going to take a few years. That's not hey, day one, I'm going to know this thing. But they can say, this is kind of what I want to be known for, because this is what I value as a human. And I think I can convey that to my patients well, and I think I can treat them well. And then, like the hedgehog concept that we've talked about before, will it actually drive your economics? Because you can like something, be passionate about it, be really good at it, but if it's not a demand, you're not going to survive as a practice. So it needs to actually have an economic engine to it as well.
I like that. So I think that sitting down and looking at what our patients expect from us.
Yeah.
My guess is that's a pretty interesting discussion if I were to have my opticians do it, my technicians do it, my doctors do it, see how aligned we are. I'm
Yeah.
almost thinking that doing it, independently,
It would be interesting. Yeah.
even by even individual person, right?
Yeah.
Hey, each of you write this down, and then I could probably take all their answers, throw it into you're my favorite AI tool, and then have
Right.
it build a word cloud on what we're seeing is the most common answer, and what are
Yeah.
the outliers, and how much are we catering to those outliers? Because if it's not fitting who our model is, why are we spending time on it?
That's right. Yeah. It will help you. It will help you focus. It'll help you streamline. I'm a big proponent of the niche piece, and not all practices can do that with precision, but you can talk about it, and you can. There was a practice I met with. They're not a client, but a practice I met with on the East Coast, and just their whole thing is very high end. And so they have this luxury experience. You walk in and it just feels like you're in it's this old building in the middle of downtown. It's beautiful. They've renovated it, and their revenue per exam is like $895, $900. I mean, it's just, and kudos. That's not going to happen in rural Illinois. It's just, you're not going to hit that $1,000 revenue per exam. I don't think. I could be wrong, but you have to know who your patients are and what they want, and can you solve that for them?
And I think knowing that, so if we take it outside of optometry, and I go to a nice restaurant because I'm celebrating anniversary with my wife, right? And so by design, I'm going to a nice, expensive restaurant because I want that. I'm seeking that out.
Yeah.
And if I looked over and there was, a family in flip-flops and kids, and they're handing out Happy Meals, right?
The experience changes quickly.
The experience changes, and I'm not going to be happy.
Yeah.
That experience is, and there's nothing wrong with that one. I mean, Lord knows I've bought my kids plenty of Happy Meals, but that's not the experience that I went to. And so if they're side by side, it detracts from both. And so I think that your point is valid, knowing who you are, and then delivering that and being able to say, no, hey, sorry, you don't get Happy Meals here, right?
Surprise.
You don't get to wear, you need to have a coat on to come in, and shoes and whatnot.
Right.
Is important because it helps you with what you do.
Yeah. I was going to say something. I can't remember what it was now. I have to cut this.
So let me circle back, because we started with this discussion with two stories, your story and my story. Right.
Yeah.
And I think we walked through, what your story is. You have a problem. I'm a visitor in your story, if you will.
Yeah.
Right. You came to me to help you with one problem. I'm not writing your story. I'm not taking over your story. I'm a guest in your world right now, trying to help you overcome this one problem. But I have my story because I've gone through this whole exercise on who I am. And so how do I show up in your story so that I'm helpful to you, not that I'm trying to take over and rewrite your story, if that makes sense?
Well, in the StoryBrand framework, you're the guide. So you're the one that shows up as you're the Obi-Wan Kenobi to Luke, to bring out some very ancient movie references, which is about all I have. Sorry.
It's a great movie.
That's timeless.
I'm not going to help you if you fall in love with your sister, though.
That's weird. Yeah.
I got to help you with some other stuff.
That's a different story. Different doctor, by the way.
Yeah. I'm not that guide.
So you show up as the guide, and you show up, and the way you do that is, first of all, you have identified that you understand the problem. So that's with empathy, that's asking the questions, that's sharing stories of other patients who have similar experiences. So you're trying to get onto their level where you understand, and genuinely trying to understand actually what's going on in their lives, or the lives of their families. So that's kind of step one, is to figure out, show empathy and show that you understand. And then the second half is that you have to show competency, and they've shown up in your office. So to a certain degree, they already believe that you're competent to do the work. If they're sitting in your exam room, then they already believe that you can help solve that problem. But you've already built that trust through asking the questions that you need to understand what's going on in their lives. You've shared, I understand this stuff, and I've seen it before, and I've got a patient A who has also experienced this too, and here's what we did with them. And then you're jumping into sharing a little bit of how you're going to solve it for them. And you're doing so in a way that actually uses words they can understand. You're not trying to impress them with your medical terminology. You're trying to make it easy for them to actually, not burn those calories like we talked about. so they can understand what you're talking about. And that's building that competence, that competency or authority, whichever way you want to look at it. And those two pieces position you as the guide, and then they trust you. And that's how you show up. And that's a very natural place in their story. So it doesn't feel like you're invading their story. It feels like you're actually in a space that they've asked you to be in. They've invited you into that story, and it fits well. Yeah.
That makes sense. So I think that's the important part. And I think that's the part that I struggle with the most, right? Is not coming in and to save the day.
Yeah.
I like to feel like all the effort I've put into life and becoming a doctor and the money I've put into the practice and the investment I've made gives me permission to, I'll never be Superman, but maybe Batman, because I got lots of cool toys and gadgets. And it's hard not to want to play that role of, I can come in and fix everything.
Yeah.
I can come in and solve your problem for you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's an earned piece. You have to, again, the empathy and the Q&A, which also happens in that situation where you're allowing them to challenge your authority a little bit. You're allowing them to push that back without bristling, without putting up the guard. You're saying, yeah, I can see how you could see that or say that. However, here's example X, Y, and Z, whatever it's the dialogue that you can shut down quickly if you jump into authority too fast. If you jump into authority too fast and they don't quite believe that you have what it takes, or they don't quite believe that you actually have heard them, then that's where it gets a little bit, you'll start seeing challenging. You'll start seeing kind of the stonewall you a little bit, where they don't even want to ask the questions because they don't trust you enough to get there. And again, we've talked about this, but that has to happen. These are minute conversations. Like, these are not long dialogues. Unless you're a practice who says, this is what I want to be known for. I want to be known. I mean, I allocate 30 minutes for every patient in the exam lane. That's a big deal, but that could be what you want to be known for. Or I want to be known for being efficient. I get you in and out in 10 minutes, that sort of thing. So again, kind of going back to what you actually believe you can solve for your patients. That's the first step.
Cool. Well, that's an interesting exercise. I look forward to.
Yeah.
Sure, I'll share that. I might need a therapy session when down the line. But I can see how in seriousness though, the value of, hey, we're, if we're a high-end office, I don't sell low-end product, right? And I have to be able to say, sorry, that's not what we do here. We're not the best fit for you.
Yeah.
Here's where I can help. Here's where I can't. And in some regards, I do it really well. I don't do vision therapy in the practice.
Right.
And I'm not afraid to say I don't do vision therapy, but I know who does, and I'm going to get you there.
Yeah.
And so, where I do, we do a lot of dry eye, and we're known for that. So we've had people come for that. We've had referrals from other professionals for that. But I think it's knowing everything, down the line of what we're, who we are and what we are. That way we can say no when we need to, and we can say yes when we need to.
Yeah. Yeah. Lean into it. Those who actually figure out that ideal customer, ideal patient profile, and know how to message toward it, know how to attract them, will ultimately build a sustainable practice. Because and then of course you have to solve a problem that actually is a need, and you solve that problem well. I mean, your marketing dollars go down, your acquisition costs go down, so your retention goes up. There's just a lot of fruit on the other end of that exercise.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you jumping back and sharing the tale of two stories with us and walking through it.
Yeah. I mean, I encourage everybody. Story brand is great, and I preach on it a lot. There's a lot of different resources out there, but Story Brand's probably the one that has Donald Miller's done a really nice job of assembling this. It does impact how you market. It does impact how you position yourself. It impacts how you run your whole sales conversations, even customer service. All that's part of it. The story framework is nothing new. We've been doing this for thousands and thousands of years. It's just a way that we can communicate well with our patients. So pick up the book. It's a good book.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Daniel.
Sure.